But take your browser over to supertalktv.com. You will see my guests today where you can watch good things on your computer or your mobile device. We have joining us Miss Savannah. She's a graduate assistant in the Department of Biology at the University of Mississippi, and she is spending her free time and her own money to help teach science literacy to the local high schools. So welcome, Savannah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I love this, and I also love this idea of getting students more literate in either science or STEM, or just maybe bridging the gaps and maybe some of the terminology or just some of the things that they may be lagging behind, so then they can have the opportunity to go further if they choose. So first off, when did you fall in love with STEM? When did science obviously, catch your attention?
Well, my dad is actually a biologist as well, so he was always taking me on his adventures when I was really young. So I've kind of loved science since I was a really little kid. And then basically just through high school with some research experiences, I realized I really wanted to go to grad school and just been never looked back since.
Never looked back. When did you start to recognize, Savannah, that maybe there was a gap in the literacy in terms of in science specifically with area high school kids?
So I teach the intro bio labs at the University of Mississippi, and there's an assignment we give them where they have to read a scientific article and summarize it. And having to grade through those, I realized that there was a lot of kids struggling with just understanding how to read those types of works. And so that was sort of where I first realized that maybe it would be something that would be good to be introduced to high school students before they get to the college.
Savannah, as a dietitian by trade, I absolutely could not agree more that I wish more everyday people at least had the basic knowledge to look at a research, look at an abstract, understand it beyond just the headline, that whatever the media chooses to use or sort of publicize about it, and then be able to sort of, articulate or at least contemplate, maybe the right word to use, what the findings were. Okay, well, you had this great idea. And so next would be actually implementing it. So how did you go about that?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate that I got a fellowship called the Mississippi Space Grant Consortium Fellowship. And then part of the requirements for that fellowship is to do some sort of K through 12 outreach and to sort of come up with your own project for it. So I just reached out to local high school teachers because I really enjoy working with older kids who can kind of have maybe more detailed discussions about the science than some of the younger kids. And so I just reached out to them and just suggested like, hey, I can bring some graduate students and undergraduate students with me, and we can sort of have these open discussions about the science itself and then what it's like to study science at different levels. And they've been very receptive of that and welcoming for me and my friends in the classroom. So it's been great.
Do you find that when students get a little bit more attention to the details of science literacy, or sort of having the moment to sort of walk them through, because I feel like once you know what to look for or to question or the red flags, then it gets a little bit more exciting. So do you see them getting more excited about scientific research?
Yeah, definitely. I think initially they're always a little bit hesitant to talk about it because they feel like it's, way above their point of view, I guess. But I always try to just, walk them through how I read things and explain to them that even sometimes at my level, there's things I read that I don't know what the word means. And then I just go to Google and look it up. I try to encourage them that it's not that you need to know everything. It's just that you're trying to teach yourself how to learn, I guess. And so once they start seeing that it's okay to not know everything, then they start to open up a little bit more, and they like to ask a lot of questions. They go on a lot of tangents, but it's great. I really enjoy it.
Well, and that's what's good conversation around science should be, right? Is you just can kind of go off into your own little rabbit holes and you never know what that also inspires in terms of learning something new or different or challenging, the science. I think that's okay too. That's definitely all part of it. And then two, the skills, Savannah, to sort of have an analytic view of a scientific research that would overlap and sort of play in other I guess, degrees or sort of other topics and subjects in school as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell them, like, I know not all of you want to go on and do what I did. It's very specific to go on to get a PhD. But, science is something that's part of our everyday life. I mean, we saw it very recently with the pandemic. There's a lot of information that's put out there, and we might not always have the resources to know how to interpret that information and know what we should trust and what we shouldn't trust. So it's just good practice to learn how to critically think about things that are going to come into our life, and maybe we're not used to knowing how to deal with that information.
Now, I know you've actually inspired some of the professors there in your Department of Biology at the University of Mississippi to kind of expand this or try to actually formalize it and get it into more schools, particularly in the Delta. Talk about how that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I have this fellowship, and then it's only lasts for 3 years. And then, of course, my PhD is like 5 to 6 years. So, once I leave, I was really thinking I'd like to have a way for this to continue on, even if I'm not here at the university. So, I was hoping that I could pair with Dr. Chen, who's the chair of our biology department, to basically hire some students, some undergrad students, kind of help co lead this outreach with me, so that in the future, when I'm gone, they can still continue to do that sort of outreach with the graduate students and undergrads at Ole Miss, and just sort of keep it going, and then hopefully expand it. Again, I'm only working at like the Oxford high schools right now just because of constraints of driving places and money and things for that. But hopefully, if we can get a little funding, we can sort of start to expand to other classrooms, or maybe even do Zoom kind of visits as well.
And who knows, your own little bit of research may come out of, going back and being able to see if having this kind of education impacts them in sort of their career choices down the road or whatever it may be. I think, you don't know what you don't know. And then when you have that power and knowledge, to me, I think having critical thinking skills is just so important and can create such confidence in students in all subject matters that they may go into. And being able to read, understand, and analyze research of any kind, to me, is one of the great critical thinking skills tasks that I feel like every student needs. Okay, your PhD, I mean, what are you studying? What are you finishing up and wrapping up there at Ole Miss?
Oh, so I study what's called mycorrhizal fungi. So these are just the fungi that grow on plant roots and basically help the plants get nutrients in exchange for the plants giving them sugars from photosynthesis. And I'm sort of studying sort of a novel evolutionary partnership that's come to be in a specific plant that grows all across North America and Europe. So that's what I'm working on now. It was really cool because I got to travel to Europe this summer and collect samples of the plants and everything. But yeah, so I'm sort of in the stages of doing a lot of lab work at the moment for that work.
So what's the big dream? Like, Savannah, like, do you hope to, like, well, what's your big dream? After you graduate, you're going to get your PhD. We know that after you defend it. And then what do you hope to do?
So I'm hoping to be a professor and a researcher, but I think that's still a ways away. I'll probably try to get a postdoc position somewhere and get a little more research under my belt. And then eventually that would be the goal, because I really enjoy research, but I also really love the teaching aspect of things. So I want to keep both of them together.
You bring up a good point that biology is not just anatomy and physiology, right? I mean, I see it in my lane, obviously, because I thought of it from a healthcare sort of perspective or a health perspective. But you bring up plants, you bring up the environment, you bring up all these other things. So for kids who are interested in science, or when you say the term biology, what is the whole sort of the umbrella term biology? What all does that encompass?
Yeah, it's just so biology is the study of life, right? So it's anything that these students can think of that relates to the world around them. And basically, it includes the biotic and abiotic factors and how they're influencing each other. My research, I really enjoy the idea of organisms interacting with each other in like a mutualistic way, so like symbioses. But yeah, it can go into, a lot of these students are really interested in the medical field. So, human biology and disease ecology, all these things can relate to it, or we can even get down onto the cellular level and just looking at genetics and cell communication and stuff. So it's a very broad range of topics in biology.
Well, I think it's super cool. I think it's really admirable what you're doing again in your free time and using your own spare cash to sort of pay it forward or bridge that gap for these high school students. Hopefully, you guys can secure some funding. In a year or two, I'll have Dr. Chin back, and he will be giving us an update on all of the science literacy that the work will be continued there at University of Mississippi. If somebody wanted more information, maybe about for their own high school or whatever, are there any good resources for that?
They could absolutely reach out to me at my email. I think that's probably, we don't really have like a website or anything right now. But I don't know if you want me to share it
You
here.
can if you want to. Yes, not your phone number,
I
but your email's great.
Yeah, so my email is sldraud, that's DRAUD, at go.olemiss.edu.
That's super cool. I also think your fungi research is really neat. They're having a great moment. People are starting to really get curious and learn a lot more about them. So good luck to you, girl, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for yours.
All righty, you guys stick with us. We got more good things for you coming up next.